Hi everyone, it's Margaret Manning here with Retire Different. This is a place for people who want to ask the right questions to make really great financial decisions in their retirement. And we bring on guests here to talk about some of the complexities of retiring. And I'm very interested in a conversation we're going to have today with Pam Krueger and Scott Whytock. Now, Pam is an investing and financial expert. She is an author and a television personality. She is the co-host of PBS Money Track and the creator of Wealth Ramp, which is an online tool that matches consumers like you to fiduciary advisors like Scott. So Scott Whytock is the owner of August Wealth Management. He is a certified financial planner and also a fiduciary advisor. His clients are a range of people from individuals to families and nonprofits. But most importantly, Scott works with his clients to custom build financial programs and planning. So welcome to you, Scott.
Thank you so much, Margaret.
And welcome, Pam. Hi, so good to have you both here. Now, we've been talking about a lot of different topics today related to retirement, but there is one which I don't think a lot of people fully understand, and I'd like to ask you some questions about how to manage Social Security, and especially after a divorce, as it relates to the benefits that you may be able to get or not get from your husband's Social Security. So who wants to start here?
For a quick sec, I'll just set the stage for a quick second here.
Please do, yeah.
The Social Security question in and of itself, I mean, a couple of years ago, I don't know if it's still the case, Scott will tell us, there were something like 3,000 different rules that dictate what you can and cannot do. Now, just remember that everything we talk about, most of it's driven by timing. Okay, so if you keep that in mind, it's going to help a lot.
Okay, so Scott, explain to us what are the ways that a divorce can impact your Social Security benefit?
Yeah, it gets complicated, and it's also fraught with a lot of emotion. You've got the emotion of divorce. You've got a lot of fear and anxiety around your financial sustainability. So there's a lot to dig into, a lot to unpack there, but people don't have to worry. There's still a lot of ways to pull different benefits from different areas, and you are always going to be entitled to your own benefit.
Of course.
So for somebody who has worked part of a career, a former spouse, you're going to be able to pull at least yours. Now, if you were married for 10 years or longer, then you can pull from your former spouse's benefit.
That's what I was going to ask you, is that you
10 years.
have been married, right? Here's the key: for at least 10 years in order to be able to be eligible to collect those benefits. And then when you do, Scott, you don't have to worry that your ex's benefits are going to go down by half. That's a common misconception.
It is. And on top of that, your spouse doesn't receive any sort of notification that you're filing, and it's more financially beneficial to you to pull against their benefit. So you don't need their permission. They're not harmed by it. So a lot of times in divorce, there's some bad blood, especially early on, that hasn't quite settled. And that's a concern for most people as well.
So Scott, how does that work though? Say that your husband is entitled to $1,500 a month or whatever, and you would get some percentage of that and he would still get the full $1,500?
Yes.
So he would get his full amount. But you would then get a percentage, or what is the percentage usually? Half or a quarter of it?
It's usually going to be half, but let's use that example where the husband is entitled to $1,500. If the wife's career was as long and she earned slightly more, let's say her benefit is $1,600. Well, now his benefit doesn't matter. You're going to claim your own benefit of $1,600 because it's higher.
Oh, okay. So it's not in addition to your benefit.
No, so you can see how this can get out of control pretty quickly.
So, I mean, for example, I can think of scenarios where a woman retires. She, like you say, she's been working all her life. She's got a $1,500 Social Security. She's about to pull it, but her husband maybe hasn't retired yet. Or he's not even maybe as old as she is, so he can't. He's not eligible for Social Security. Does that like a lifetime thing? Like if the woman was, younger or older, does she get to claim her husband's 5 years later when he's old enough to claim? Does that make any sense?
No, there are some age restrictions.
It's complicated.
I get where you're going with this. And there are some unique age restrictions. So you do want to have your arms wrapped around that before you start going through the divorce process, planning on claiming Social Security when maybe you're not going to be eligible. So it's really important to talk to a professional and understand what your options are.
Okay.
It's Scott, Margaret. Let me just jump in here for a quick second and point something out. Now, Scott has a particular accreditation that is called the CDFA. You're never going to remember that. It doesn't matter. But what does matter is that in this particular case with Scott, we're not talking so much about after divorce. We're talking about Scott has this credential that helps you while you're in the process of divorce as well.
Okay.
So when you combine the two things together and you're looking at planning ahead and you're looking at, you're in a divorce and things haven't been completely settled yet, and then you've got Social Security questions coming right up, etc. This is where Scott has a particular specialization in this area. And the whole point is to try to look ahead as much as you can, to look for all the potholes in the road to avoid, for example, Scott, maybe you could give us like two of the biggest examples you've seen of where planning could have saved the day.
Right. That would be great.
Sure. So a lot of times, like any job, any profession, some attorneys are a little more well-versed in the financial side of things. Others are not. But when you go through the divorce process, you have to disclose, each party has to disclose their assets. And a lot of times that's the main focus. Somebody like me comes in and tries to drive the focus also in the long term, because when you split up assets, $1 of a retirement portfolio is not the same as $1 in a non-retirement portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to just split $1 on each side. It's more complicated when you start looking down the road and think the impact of accessing that dollar.
Right. So what would you say would be like the two biggest mistakes that you've seen regarding Social Security, timing issues, et cetera, or opportunities lost after divorce?
Mm-hmm.
I think almost at this point with the rule changes that have happened in the last few years, almost every mistake I see is boiled down to misconceptions on the part of the person that will be claiming Social Security. They think they're entitled to something because that's how it worked for their parents or a friend or something like that.
Yeah.
They think they're going to be, in the case of where a husband was the breadwinner and maybe the wife stayed at home with children or had a small part-time job and didn't earn nearly as much, she thinks she's up a creek. And you're not. It may not be as rosy as you want, but you do have options. So I think almost any time it comes down to Social Security, it's such a bear of a topic to get your arms around that so many people are just afraid or don't have the knowledge that they need to make an informed decision.
Okay.
So what kind of questions would you ask somebody though? I mean, say a woman comes into your office, say I come in, I'm planning to get divorced. I'm, 65 and I'm, going to be retiring like now or next year. What kind of questions would you ask me? Would you ask me like, would you go to Social Security to find out what your husband, can you do that? I mean, how do you find out what your husband's entitled to and when?
Through the divorce process, a lot of these things have to be disclosed. And not in every case, but in many, each party has at least a rough idea of the other party's benefits and other earning power. So, I'll try to wrap my arms around that, and then try to figure out exactly where Social Security might be needed. Now, if there are sufficient assets or sufficient earning power to get somebody through who maybe is going through a divorce at 65, you are I guess I'll use the term rewarded for waiting longer to claim your Social Security benefit. It's roughly an 8% jump each year in the amount of your benefit. So if there's anything we can do to delay that even 1 year, an 8% pay raise, which is essentially what it is gigantic. So that's where I'm going to sort of dig in. Somebody might think, oh, well, I'm just going to take this $1,500 a month now because I need it. I've got bills and blah, blah, blah to, to account for. Well, maybe I can figure out a way where we don't want to take that. We want to pull it from somewhere else because we're going to win in the long run by doing so.
So really what you're saying, though, is that the whole conversation about Social Security, there's an impact of divorce in that you're taking that opportunity to look at your financial situation going forward without a marriage relationship. But it's just one part of the decision making about Social Security. Like, for example, when you're getting divorced, say at 65, waiting until 70, you can still pull from your husband's Social Security at that point. But your advice is to look at your own, what you're pulling yourself, as much as what could come in the future.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because the value will be greater for you later.
Yeah, exactly.
Worth more money to you. The way I like to think of it is these are strategies, Margaret and Scott. They're Social Security strategies so that you can. Sorry about that. That was
somebody wants some Social Security advice there.
Just a phone call coming in about So we're talking about strategizing and creating strategies that work for you and the timing of those and so forth. For example, Scott, can you explain one thing that we hear as a very common strategy called file and suspend, and how that is an exception when you're divorced and if things have changed there? Just in a nutshell, what does file and suspend mean to you as a woman who's maybe newly divorced? Why is it relevant?
Years ago, the Social Security Administration used to have a lot of different techniques you could employ in order to try and enhance your benefit in the long run. And they were quite useful because, as we know, everybody's situation is significantly different. Being 65 and having a benefit of $1,500 a month is useful information, but there's so much more behind that. Now, whether it's what used to be more available with file and suspend and other techniques, you might have you might be the second woman to divorce this husband. How does that impact me if both former wives are pulling?
Well, what is file and suspend? Because it comes up a lot. It seems like a very big deal, especially when you're talking about divorce. Whether you can do that, whether you can suspend or you can't your benefits. But what does file and then suspend mean?
Yeah, it's not as available anymore. But it used to be a way to start the clock sort of ticking, without getting too much into the weeds. Start the clock ticking for your benefits, but then not have to take them, but let them build.
I see. Okay.
It's not quite as available anymore. So there are many different tools out there that you can use that will help you judge whether or not a particular technique is going to work best for you. And a lot of times that comes with just sitting down at your local Social Security office and having a face-to-face conversation and trying to dig this sort of information up.
Well, your head's going to blow up. You can't memorize all of this stuff. What you do, for example, is you're not a Social Security Administration person either, but you have software that is financial planning software that allows you to factor in all these different permutations and combinations, right? So you can really help create a roadmap for a woman who's just newly divorced and trying to figure it all out with Social Security and doesn't want to make mistakes. Do you talk directly to the Social Security Administration on behalf of your clients, or does your software incorporate all of that in?
Both, because I can gather information, I can understand information, but I need to translate that to my client, who every client's going to learn a little bit differently. So, we'll have some phone calls with Social Security. And then I will sort of translate some of that information into something that works for them to be able to understand. And it might be more visual. It might be getting into the weeds of all the details, and it might be just trying to keep it, Social Security 101 sort of level.
Yeah, but it's part of the bigger plan.
Absolutely.
It's like a pizza. Absolutely. It's a slice of the pizza that you're going to live off of in retirement. So for you as a planner, you need to have that incorporated in. And so I'm assuming that that's part of the software that you're using when you're looking at a client's particular situation with all the different inputs, that especially with divorce. So
100%
the security gets factored in to, so it's good to know, Margaret, like how people coordinate these pieces. Like, do I talk to the Social Security Administration and never, my advisor doesn't know anything about it? And Scott, that's not the case. I mean, you're holistic. You're looking at everything.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we've been talking about in previous discussions too, about fiduciary advisors, or maybe it should be fiduciary planners. Maybe that's a better way to talk about fiduciary advisors, because they're interested in the whole picture. And I think what we're saying here is that divorce is one milestone that's complicated enough as it is. But when you actually then put into that Social Security and other pensions and other kinds of benefits,
alimony,
you need someone like Scott, really, who's going to be able to, put, like you said, the whole pizza, rather than just looking at your, whether you should have an annuity or whether you should be doing this or that, or just the complication of separating assets in a divorce. But I think that's the truth, is that just know that the conversation about Social Security is important in a divorce process. It's just one of the pieces.
I just have one more thing that I want to know from Scott, which is, Scott, what's the number one thing that if you could say, don't do it, that you would warn people who are divorced not to do with regard to their Social Security timing decisions?
I would say the number one thing is not to react out of fear. A lot of times when you get to divorce, things do really pick up quick, and things are happening maybe too fast for a lot of people. You can still take the time to be proactive.
Right.
You can still take the time to educate. It's a conversation or two that you need to have. And I do accept and understand that there are many, many things going on through a divorce. But there are some things you can tweak and fix easily afterward. This is really not one. So let's take the time to learn a little bit and get it right.
This is not one. What you're really saying is, once you start grabbing that money from Social Security after you're divorced, and you've done it out of fear, you pull the ripcord, you're saying you can't take that back.
Yeah, you can't undo.
Well, there you go, everybody. No, I mean, it's really good, though, to know that there are people like you, Scott, that really are taking this whole process holistically, like Pam said, and looking at it as all connected. There's a connection between all of this, and that your financial future after divorce is going to be dependent on making the right decisions by asking the right questions. So I think that, is there any resource that you would, I mean, obviously, Pam, you've got a whole directory of fiduciary advisors like Scott on your Wealth Ramp program online tool. Is there any way they can specially say we're interested in divorce fiduciaries, or people that are, is there like a checklist on Wealth Ramp?
Yes, because what I do is I ask people questions that I think are really important when they come in. So you have to get matched, you have to answer a bunch of my questions.
Okay.
That's one of them. Yeah, because Scott's a different animal. He's a specialist in divorce, financial planning, retirement income strategies, and Social Security is all part of that. So, that's a specialization.
So don't all go calling Scott at the same time. You can actually check him out on his website. It's augustwealthmanagement.com. And Pam, you can find on wealthramp.com. And thank you so much for grappling with this very difficult topic. But I hope that's given people some vision that it's just an important conversation to have as part of the divorce process, as if it's not tough enough. But thank you, Pam, very much for being here. And thank you so much, Scott. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our Retire Different YouTube channel and check out our website at retiredifferent.com. We are a community of people who are asking questions and trying to make good financial decisions so that we can have an amazing retirement. We'll be looking at our relationship to money and also places that we can go for support, advice, and inspiration.